Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We've got how's everybody doing today? What is today? Tuesday? Yeah, it's Tuesday the 10th of February. It's actually broke 30 degrees here where I live, and you could finally hear the snow melting like crazy. It sounds like it's raining outside, but it's actually just snow melting. But anyways, I'm here. Karoline Leavitt is holding a press conference right now as we speak live. We're gonna go to that from the White House, and then uh, I've got a press conference out of Florida. Um, there was an arrest. The Florida Attorney General is doing a press conference about an arrest that happened that you'll have to stick around to see. Chuck Schumer is I have a Chuck Schumer press from earlier where he's along the Epstein victims, etc. We're going to see what he had to say, and we're going to see what Thomas Massey had to say in his press conference. And if we get to it, they released her deposition from yesterday, and we'll get to do that. Thanks for popping in. Let's get to the press while it is live. So let's go. Welcome to everybody that's popping in. All right. Whoa. Whoa. What's going on here? Get rid of that. All right. Here we go, guys. Sorry. All right. Let's go.
The country with any knowledge of the suspect to please call the FBI, who continue to assist state and local authorities who are leading this investigation on the ground. And once again, I will reiterate that the prayers of this entire White House are with Savannah and her family at this time. And we hope this person is found soon and that her mother is brought home safely. President Trump has a very busy week ahead, so I will begin with some scheduling announcements today. Tomorrow, here at the White House, the president will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a bilateral meeting. The remainder of the week will be focused. Tomorrow afternoon, the president will hold an event in the East Room to tout clean, beautiful coal as America's most reliable and affordable energy source, especially during periods of peak demand, just as we have millions of Americans. The president will discuss how clean, beautiful coal is not only keeping the lights on in our country, but also driving down the cost of electricity across the country as well. Additionally, on Thursday, President Trump will be joined by Administrator Lee Zeldin to formalize the rescission of the 2009 Obama era endangerment finding. This will be the largest deregulatory action in American history, and it will save the American people $1.3 trillion in crushing regulations. The bulk of the savings will stem from reduced costs for new vehicles, with the EPA projecting average per vehicle savings of more than $2,400 for popular light-duty cars, SUVs, and trucks. This is just one more way this administration is working to make life more affordable for everyday Americans. Overall, these groundbreaking actions from President Trump will drive larger economic growth, create thousands of good paying jobs, expand manufacturing, increase consumer choice, and improve affordability for millions of families and businesses. Finally, on Friday, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will travel to Fort Bragg in the great state of North Carolina to meet with military families and the heroic members of our special forces who carried out the successful Operation Absolute Resolve in Venezuela and helped bring narco terrorist Nicolas Maduro to justice. I know the president and First Lady are both greatly looking forward to this visit. Also, the First Lady will celebrate Valentine's Day at the Children's Inn at the National Institute of Health tomorrow, with children, families, and NIH staff involved in clinical trials. In other news this week, thanks to President Trump signing the largest middle class tax cut in history, this is shaping up to be the biggest tax refund season ever, and we are in it now. President Trump and Republicans fundamentally believe that Americans deserve to keep more of their hard earned money, not less, which is why he fought so hard to deliver this long overdue relief. From no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security to auto loan interest deductions on new American made vehicles, plus increases to the standard deduction in child tax credit, more money is flowing back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. We're already hearing from everyday Americans across the country who are reporting substantial tax savings thanks to the Working Families Tax Cut, which every single Democrat in Congress voted against. AMAC, which represents millions of Americans, has heard directly from more than their 1,000 members already about how the Trump tax cuts are easing cost of living concerns. I wanted to share a few of those powerful responses with you today. This one comes from Dean and Wendy in Wisconsin, who said, quote, instead of paying out $3,700 last year, we got back $2,500 in refunds this year. This is huge for our family. Steve from California said, quote, the new senior citizen deduction is a tremendous relief and has given us peace of mind and the freedom to truly enjoy the retirement years we worked so hard for. Eric from Nevada said, as a senior, no tax on Social Security helps me tremendously. The no tax on tips helps my daughter-in-law as a waitress. The no tax on overtime helps my son, who works constantly. Our family savings from the One Big Beautiful Bill could total even more than $5,000. We love the Trump tax cuts. These are just a few positive examples of the everyday Americans that President Trump's tax cuts are uplifting. We'd love to hear more from the American people across the country who are benefiting from the Working Families tax cuts. The White House is also pleased to share that parents across the country can now officially apply to open a Trump account for their child. In order to apply, parents can visit trumpaccounts.gov and fill out the IRS form 4547. These Trump accounts are special investment accounts aimed at providing American children with a jump start on building wealth for life. They have all the tax advantages as a traditional IRA account, but are specifically tailored to build wealth the moment a child is born. Thanks to President Trump, every child born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028 is eligible to receive $1,000 from the U.S. Treasury to fund their account. Parents, guardians, and even nonprofits can then contribute up to $5,000 per year. Employers can also contribute up to $2,500 per year per employee. President Trump believes there is no better investment than investing in our nation's children. If you are a parent who maximizes contributions to your child's Trump account, its projected value could reach nearly $1.1 million by the time your child turns 28 years old, based on average historical stock market returns. Safe to say, the Trump accounts will give a substantial head start to position the next generation for a brighter future. And with the stock market exploding under President Trump's pro-growth policies, there has never been a better time to sign up for an investment account like this. The Dow Jones just shattered 50,000 for the first time ever on Friday, and the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ continue smashing record after record. So with President Trump in charge, Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming once again, and these new Trump accounts for America's kids will boom too. So with that, once again, every parent should go to trumpaccounts.gov today, and I'm going to put it on my own personal to-do list to sign up for one as well. With that, I will take your questions. Karoline Downey from the National Review is here. Thank you for being here, and why don't you kick us off?
Thank you for having me. On the criticism that immigration enforcement has become arbitrary or not particularly prioritizing, Democrats have been circulating this statistic that only 14% of illegal immigration are violent criminals, but we know that in deep blue cities with progressive district attorneys, it's common to plead down serious violent crimes into less serious offenses, which could be distorting those numbers. So given that backdrop, does the administration still stand by the messaging that you're targeting the worst of the worst? And does this prevailing narrative tell the whole story?
Well, thank you for bringing this up, Caroline. I've seen this CBS report floating around. There's a lot of liberal talking heads and pundits and Democrat elected politicians who think that this single story and these statistics and the way they are painted is somehow a shot at this administration. It is not. And let me correct the record. Number one, the Trump administration has been clear from day one that any illegal alien present in this country is subject to deportation. However, the priority, of course, is going after the convicted criminals, the worst of the worst, the murderers, the pedophiles, the rapists in this country. Interestingly, in the CBS story, what the Democrat talking heads on television are not saying is this line. Nearly 60% of ICE arrestees over the past year had criminal charges or convictions. And among that population, the majority of the criminal charges or convictions are for nonviolent crimes. Oh, well, what are nonviolent crimes, you ask? This has coincided with what DHS has been saying all along, that approximately 70% of illegal aliens arrested under President Trump have pending criminal charges and or prior convictions. And these so-called nonviolent crimes, drug trafficking, distribution of child porn, burglary, fraud, DUI, embezzlement, solicitation of a minor, and human smuggling, just to name a few. So just because a crime is not violent in nature doesn't mean that crime is victimless. And I can guarantee every single person who is out there on television right now pointing to these statistics that were taken out of context by CBS News would not want an illegal alien convicted of the distribution of child porn or fraud or DUI living in your community. So the Trump administration will continue our focus on deporting all illegal aliens present in our country with a focus on the worst of the worst criminals. Thank you for being here. Gabe.
Caroline, thank you. And thank you for the update on our colleague Savannah Guthrie's mother. Is there anything more you can share? You said the president was reviewing that surveillance footage. What was his initial reaction when seeing those disturbing images? And does he believe that that suspect acted alone?
I haven't talked to him specifically about the second point on whether the suspect acted alone or not. So I don't want to weigh in on the president's thinking on that. His initial reaction, of course, as all Americans, is just pure disgust. And again, it's heartbreaking to see now this footage really bring to life a story we've all been reading about. And again, we're just praying for the safety of Nancy Guthrie and that she will return home soon. And the president directed me to please encourage all Americans with any information to call the FBI. And we hope that this case will come to a positive resolution as soon as possible.
We, of course, have a lot to talk about and a completely separate topic. I was hoping you can clarify something that's come up over the last several days, again, regarding a separate topic, the Epstein files. According to newly released files, the president had a conversation with the Palm Beach police chief in the early 2000s, according to the police chief in 2019. The president has gone on record before, and he's told reporters that he said that he had no idea about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. During this conversation with the police chief, however, he did say, according to this recounting of it, that thank goodness you're stopping him. He also called Ghislaine Maxwell evil. So my two questions are, did that conversation with the Palm Beach police chief happen? And can you explain the discrepancy?
What I will say is that the president has always remained consistent and that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club at Mar-a-Lago because, frankly, Jeffrey Epstein was a creep. And unlike many other people who are named in these files, President Trump cut off his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and was honest and transparent about that for years and years. And so I think what the president has said all along has always remained true. And the release of more than 3 million documents related to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous, disgusting crimes just shows the level of transparency that this president and administration has committed to in bringing these files to light.
But did he call the chief in 2006? Caroline, did he call the chief?
Look, it was a phone call that may or may not have happened in 2006. I don't know the answer to that question. What I'm telling you is that what President Trump has always said is that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club because Jeffrey Epstein was a creep, and that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning. And I'm sure many of you, when you read that alleged FBI report, probably thought to yourself, wow, this really cracks our narrative that we've been trying to push about this president for many years. So we're moving on from that. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I want to ask you about the SAVE Act. NBC reported that there's some hesitation among House Republicans on adding absentee ballot restrictions into the SAVE Act. Can you explain what the hesitation is among House Republicans and also just provide a status of negotiations with Congress on the legislation?
Sure. I can't speak for House Republicans, Reagan. I can obviously speak for the president, who is quite possibly the strongest supporter of the Save America Act, which, as you know, would require proof of citizenship to register to vote. It would require proof of identification, a photo identification before casting a ballot. And it would also ensure that there are exceptions made. I think that's what you're alluding to with these conversations with House Republicans for reasonable requests, of course, for our military, for individuals who are disabled and cannot make it to the polls. Those are reasonable, common sense things that I believe House Republicans are discussing amongst themselves. But as for the president, he's been very clear. He wants House Republicans and Democrats too, if they were politically wise, to pass this legislation, for the Senate to pass it, to send it to the president's desk so it can be signed into law.
Follow-up. I'm wondering when the last time the president spoke to Leader Thune was, and if he discussed using the standing filibuster to pass legislation.
The president has given his position on the standing filibuster. As for his most recent conversation with Leader Thune, frankly, I'm not sure. I do know they speak very frequently. The president's in constant communication with both Leader Thune and the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. Stephen, I see we switched up our seating chart. Your direct line of sight now. Congratulations.
Thank you to the Correspondents Association for recognizing the New York Post's reach. I've got two questions for you, one about the Guthrie case and then another about infrastructure. On the Guthrie case, does President Trump have a warning to the culprits here about what would happen to them, what federal consequences they would face if they do not release Nancy Guthrie unharmed?
I think anyone who was involved in this depraved crime, this abduction, of course, we want to be seen held to the fullest extent of the law possible.
And on infrastructure, can you explain why President Trump asked Chuck Schumer to help him rename Penn Station and Dulles Airport after himself? Why is he interested in having his name on those two buildings? And why are the Gateway Tunnel funds the proper point of pressure to get that to happen?
To your first question about the renaming, why not? It was something the president floated in his conversation with Chuck Schumer. As for the funding, the president has addressed that separately himself. Danny.
Thanks. Today, the vice president's account posted and then deleted a tweet about the Armenian genocide. And then last week, President Trump's Truth Social account posted and then deleted a racist video about the Obamas. And the White House again blamed that on a staffer. I wanted to ask you, does the White House have a social media problem at the moment? Do you have an auto-posting problem that's leading to these mistakes?
No. As for the Armenian tweet that you're referring to, I would just refer you back to the White House's message that was issued on Armenian Remembrance Day, and there's been no change of policy at this time. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. When the president goes to Beijing in the spring, does he have plans to try and advocate on behalf of Jimmy Lai, who was just sentenced to 20 years yesterday?
This is something I've heard the president advocate for both publicly and privately. I had the honor of being in that meeting with President Trump and President Xi in South Korea that took place, and this was brought up by the president himself. It is important to him, and he looks forward to visiting China in April. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. So some Republican lawmakers from Nebraska have said they're worried that the Argentinian beef executive order will sideline some American ranchers. How will the Trump administration make sure prices go down for consumers without harming those ranchers?
Of course. Well, both things can happen at the same time. That's the president's belief. He wants to see prices come down. In fact, I just overheard him on the phone with Secretary Rollins. They were talking about something different, but he's always saying we got to make sure that prices continue to come down. As you know, Secretary Rollins successfully did that with respect to egg prices. Beef prices are coming down slightly, and the president wants to see that continue. He believes that a minor import to the country with cattle might be a short-term solution with respect to bringing down prices. But of course, protecting our American cattle and rancher industry is a priority for the president. And he's in touch with those stakeholders. We've had them here at the White House a few times in recent months to discuss this issue directly. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Yesterday, the president on social media threatened to block the new Gordie Howe Bridge, which would connect Detroit to Canada. This is a bridge that was fully paid for by Canada. It used American labor to construct it. It used American steel to construct that bridge. The president in 2017 was actually in favor of this bridge, part of a joint statement that he put out when he met with the Canadian Prime Minister. Why has the president changed his mind as it relates to this bridge?
I think the president was very clear and direct in his truth, John. But just to reiterate, the fact that Canada will control what crosses the Gordie Howe Bridge and owns the land on both sides is unacceptable to the president. It's also unacceptable that more of this bridge isn't being built with more American-made materials, even more so than what President Barack Obama committed to with the Canadians at the time, at the start of the project. He also believes that the U.S. should own at least half of the bridge, have shared authority over what passes across it, and participate in the economic benefits generated by its use. This is just another example of President Trump putting America's interests first. And so he made that very clear in his call with Prime Minister Carney earlier today. Phil.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem just posted a photo of herself signing the last contract to build a border wall between Laredo, Del Rio, and Big Bend, Texas, among reports that construction had stalled. Is the president satisfied with the pace of construction?
The president wants to make sure that the full border wall is built as quickly as possible, of course. I know this is a priority for him dating back to 2016. And so absolutely, he wants to ensure that the border wall is built under budget and ahead of schedule is how President Trump likes to view building projects, and that includes the border wall.
Satisfied with the pace of construction thus far?
I think the president is never satisfied. He always wants to ensure that things are moving along as quickly as possible. But I know Secretary Noem is on it, and she's doing a great job. You're welcome. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you.
Charlie.
On the Nancy Guthrie case, is the president satisfied with the federal and local investigations so far? And has there been any more contact from the White House or the president with the family?
I don't think anybody will be satisfied until this case is brought to a close and until Nancy Guthrie is returned home safely with her loved ones.
Contacts? Has the president contacted the family since?
Not since that initial phone call. Sure, Tamara.
Thank you. The National Governors Association is removing a meeting with President Trump from his agenda because only Republicans were invited. Is the White House reconsidering inviting Democrats, or do you think Republicans are still going to show up? Like, where does that stand now?
No, look, I just spoke with the president about this. It is a dinner at the White House. It's the people's house. It's also the president's home. And so he can invite whomever he wants to dinners and events here at the White House. I believe Governor Moore was invited last year, and he did not show up to the dinner last year. Nobody reported on it. But again, the president has the discretion to invite whomever he wants to the White House, and he welcomes all those who received an invitation to come. And if they don't want to, that's their loss.
And on Ghislaine Maxwell, is the president going to rule out a pardon for her in her testimony, deposition yesterday? Her legal team seems to be making a case again for a pardon from the president.
Again, this is not something I've discussed with the president recently because, frankly, it's not a priority. He's focused on many of the issues that the American people are dealing with and providing solutions to those issues. So I haven't spoken with him recently. Last time we did speak about it, he said it's not something he's considering or thinking about. Go ahead, Bloomberg.
Thanks, Caroline. Secretary Litnick today was testifying on the Hill, and he said that he had visited Epstein's Island in 2012 with his wife and children. And that's after he said that he had cut ties with Epstein. And Justice Department documents show that he was in contact with Epstein through 2018 over messages. So does the White House stand behind Secretary Litnick right now? Or given what he has said today, has there been any shift in how the White House is viewing Secretary Litnick's performance?
No, Secretary Litnick remains a very important member of President Trump's team, and the president fully supports the secretary. I will just point out that there are a lot of wins in the news this week that people in this room have not asked about because you continue to ask questions about the same subject. So let me point them out for you. Again, on Friday, the Dow shattered 50,000 for the first time ever. This week, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons came out in opposition to gender mutilation surgeries for children. They are the first major medical group to do so. A federal appeals court today, nobody asked about that, just upheld the Trump administration's policy of detaining illegal aliens, validating the strong measures that have driven illegal crossings to historic lows, and sent a crystal clear message that under President Trump, if you enter the country illegally, you will be detained and removed. The murder rate, again, not a single question about this, has plunged to a 125-year low as crime falls across the board thanks to President Trump's crime crackdown. We also saw this week national median rents have fallen to a 4-year low following 6 consecutive monthly declines, and mortgage affordability has surged to a 4-year high. Home ownership is the core foundation principle of the American dream, and I will repeat that mortgage affordability this week surged to a 4-year high, but not a single of mention of that in this briefing room today. And again, this came out last Friday, but for an unprecedented 9th straight month, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border. So we're going to get back to business. The president is very busy today, and you will see him all tomorrow at the event in the East Room touting his administration's energy policy. Thank you.
So a big day at the White House today with Karoline Leavitt, the superstar, the press secretary there in the James S. Brady briefing room. Of course, that New York Post report that there was this alleged conversation over the phone with the FBI and then citizen Donald Trump in 2006 regarding Epstein and calling Ghislaine Maxwell a relatively evil one. We'll see if that development did take place, but apparently that there in the 3.5 million pages of those documents in the Epstein files, as
a luscious ribeye steak with a
have been redacted that are likely incriminated by their inclusion in these files. So that's the first thing that I saw. It took some digging to find them. Then I'll let you talk about what you saw.
Well, and we discussed that. I mean, there are 6 men, some of them with their photographs that have been redacted, and there's no explanation why those people were redacted. And Thomas discovered it through his MIT logic with some of the searches. But, you know, that's really concerning. I think there are 2 other points. One is some of the internet concern about some of the more sensational emails. I mean, I do think it's important to recognize that some of the senders on that are women. And so some of the redactions may be appropriate, some may not be appropriate. We need to look at that. But just because there's an email out there, it doesn't mean that there's necessarily an improper redaction. The bigger concern is these 6 individuals. I will say that the staff was very professional in allowing us to do the searches. Our bigger concern is that there's still a lot that's redacted. Even in what we're seeing redacted versions. I thought we were supposed to see the unredacted versions. And that's because the documents produced to justice from the FBI, from the grand jury was redacted when they got it. So we kept doing the searches for the unredacted information. It's the identical redactions that they have. Now, I don't think that's nefarious on the career attorneys that were reviewing it, but they obviously haven't gotten the production because our law says that the FBI and the original grand jury needs to be unredacted.
Right. The U.S. attorneys and the FBI are compelled, as well as the DOJ, and the DOJ was responsible for this document production, and they just produced documents that have been given to them from the FBI, the 302 forms, for instance, which need to be unredacted. There was one other thing that definitely needs to be addressed. Some of these files have been taken down like the DOJ produced them, and for some reason they decided that victims' names were in there and that they needed further redactions. But those documents not only haven't been put back up on the site with the appropriate redactions, they were not available to us to search. As far as I could tell, we couldn't search the documents that had been taken off the internet.
Can you share with us the name of the 6 men that you identified?
I probably should do that from the floor or in a committee hearing.
And look, they should be releasing these documents. We have many avenues where we can compel that legally. Maybe they've done it out of oversight. I don't know. I don't believe that. But, they should be releasing those documents. And our hope is to get them to do that. And then in some of the redactions, they need to be very careful in whether that was a survivor or not. Just because, for example, someone is female doesn't necessarily mean they're survivors. And it seemed like they blanket redacted anyone who was a female from my review.
Yeah, I would like to give the DOJ a chance to say they made a mistake and over-redacted and let them unredact those men's names. That would probably be the best way to do it.
Now a local tax expert will do your taxes for $150 all in. No cap.
So how much of the redactions you said that there are a lot of the documents, some of what you saw in there had redactions. How much new information then did you see that was unredacted, or did it look pretty similar to what we've seen publicly?
I mean, what we're after is the men who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women to. We want those names published. We're not out to embarrass people. And the problem is we went in there hoping to see that in 302 forms. What we found out is those 302 forms were redacted before they got to the DOJ. But our legislation directs the FBI, which is the agency that produced those 302 forms, to also produce these documents. The Attorney General is ultimately responsible for that production. So that's why we're here at the DOJ to view these files. But there needs to be more information given in those 302s. So I was disappointed we didn't find that. But it's also clear, just sort of as a checking their homework, that they need to do a little more homework. There are 6 men. We went in there for 2 hours. There's millions of files, right? And in a couple of hours, we found 6 men whose names have been redacted, who are implicated in the way that the files are presented.
What's your message to Pam Bondi after what you saw today?
Need to do a little more work. And we'll see her at the Judiciary Committee here in a couple of days.
At the very least, these 6 men, maybe she can make public. I mean, we're happy to provide the information to them, and they should do that. Look, there's some of the effort, because there were a lot of career attorneys on there. There's some redactions that were appropriate, some for protect the survivors. And some of the most sensational things out on the internet, there may have been appropriate redaction. So, for Thomas and me, it's always been about the facts. And our biggest concern is what was redacted before it even came to the Justice Department. I mean, the reality is that the most important things, the 302 files and some of the information on the prosecution memos, it's unclear that those redactions happened here. We saw a lot of files that already were redacted. And then, of course, they have been protecting some of these men. Maybe it was not intentionally, but the law is very clear. They need to comply with the law.
And finally, the documents that they put up and decided for one reason or another they had to take back down, I was hoping to see those here. They didn't appear to be in the database that we were able to search. Those ostensibly are wholly redacted files now. We know they exist. They published them for a brief period of time and pulled them back. They need to answer to us as to, do they intend to redact those files and put them back up and put them in the database so that we can search them and see if it was appropriate to take them back down from the website.
Are these men U.S. citizens? What fields do they work in? Is it finance? Is it political?
At least one is a U.S. citizen. At least one is a foreigner. And the other 3 or 4 have names. I'm not sure if they're foreign or U.S.
And which field do they work in? Is it finance, banking, political?
One is pretty high up in the foreign government.
And some are, one of the others is a pretty prominent individual. But I think that the point is that these 6 are just what we found in 2 hours of a review of the files that aren't redacted. The broader issue is why so many of the files they're getting are redacted in the first place. And until that becomes unredacted, the main things that they're sending to the career attorneys to review, I don't think we're going to have full compliance with the law or get to the question that most Americans want to know. Who were the rich and powerful people who went to this island? Did they rape underage girls? Did they know that underage girls were being paraded around? And after seeing this, I don't blame the U.S. attorneys, the assistant U.S. attorneys reviewing it. If they're reviewing redacted material, what are they supposed to do? But they're getting, it seems like, material that's already been redacted.
Congressman Raskin also viewed these materials earlier, and he said that he saw President Trump's name redacted. He saw Lee Wexler's name redacted. Did you see President Trump's name redacted, Lee Wexler's name redacted? Can you share anything about that?
I didn't put Donald Trump in the search engine, so I couldn't tell you.
Why not?
Email about the little girl who was, quote, a little naughty.
I did, and that was a woman that wrote that, and so it may be proper to redact it, and it may not be. I don't know. It seems like part of their algorithm for redaction was just to redact every woman in there, pretty much.
Yeah.
So we can't parse if the person who sent that was a victim or not.
Look, none of this is designed to be a witch hunt. If just because someone may be in the files doesn't mean that they're guilty. But there are very powerful people who raped these underage girls. It wasn't just Epstein and Maxwell, or showed up to the island, or showed up to the ranch, or showed up to the home knowing underage girls were being paraded around, and some of the sickening stuff in there about the violence. And what we want to do is have the investigation to get to those people, to answer those questions. Not to say that every internet rumor about some email is going to be true. And like I said, in some of the cases, the redactions may have been appropriate. But for Thomas and me, it's never been about getting Donald Trump or getting Bill Clinton or scoring political points or trying to destroy people's reputations. It's about actually getting justice for these survivors.
Do either of you plan to read the 6 names on the House floor?
I think we need to give the DOJ a chance to go back through and correct their mistakes.
How long do they have to do that? How long do they have to redact these files?
They're already breaking the law. Look, they're way past the deadline. And the reason they gave for taking so much time is so they wouldn't release victims' information. But in fact, they've released all kinds of victims' information. So the problem here is not the deadline. The problem is they need to go back. They need to themselves check their own homework or have somebody else check it. And as Rose said, they need to go to the U.S. attorneys and the FBI, who are compelled by the legislation directly to produce that material to them unredacted.
And I think, look, we could have brought contempt or impeachment weeks ago, but our interest is in actually getting the information out. And as a result of the strategy we've been pursuing, this is the largest release of the Epstein files in history. Now, it's not enough, but it has exposed people in the highest levels in technology, in finance, in real estate. It has exposed the establishment and monarchies in other countries. So our push is, how do we expose this and have accountability, not how do we score political points or have retribution.
What questions are you going to ask him on?
He's on the committee.
We'll see Wednesday.
You said a lot of the reductions were already made before the files were intended to clear. Who do you suspect made those reductions?
It seems that they were made by the FBI or they were made by attorneys in the grand jury, but the Justice Department, it seems, got some of these documents already redacted. Our law was very clear. Unless something was classified, it required it to be unredacted. And they have not complied with that law. And that law needs to be complied with, because that's where a lot of the information is, especially about the powerful people in this country and what their involvement was. And, their involvement could have been that they were showing up at this island knowing that there was pedophilia taking place. Their involvement could have been that they were actually engaged in raping underage girls or knowing that underage girls were being raped. We won't know until we see those files.
What information
Jose Maxwell and her lawyers statement say?
6 men were implicated in Epstein's crimes.
It's a list of 20. You can actually, I'll direct you to the unredacted or the redacted file. It's a list of 20 individuals. 3 or 4, Maxwell and Epstein are on the list, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. And everybody else is redacted, and their names are redacted, but it also includes 20 pictures, 20 photographs. And they're sort of mugshots. They're not the best pictures. I'm not sure if they were mugshots or not, but there are at least 3 or 4 males in the photographs. I couldn't verify by looking at their names because they have foreign names. I couldn't verify by looking at their names that they were male until I went and looked at the photographs. By the way, in the document I'm directing you to, the photographs are redacted and their names are redacted. There is no reason in our legislation that allows them to redact the names of those men, as far as I can tell.
Unless there are any male survivors, which seems hard to believe given this issue. But and all the women that are redacted, it's unclear if they were just actual survivors, in which case they did the appropriate thing, or whether they just, as Thomas said, had an algorithm to take out any woman's name.
There's also hold on a second. There's also an FBI form that lists people who are conspirators, and one of those is a male. It's like on an FBI form, they've redacted his picture and his name on that form where they were, I guess, considering an indictment or indicting or something. I don't have the number in front of me, but I could direct you. It's a 3-page EFTA file.
Were authorities?
I'm not sure if they're mugshots.
Were authorities investigating these individuals, or
in one instance it was, and in the other instance it seemed to be.
I've got to go. I'll let Thomas.
No, I got to go too.
All right.
One last question for you, Congressman Khanna. Congressman Massey has called for Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to face potentially some accountability for the connection that he has in these files. Do you support that call?
Absolutely. Look at what's happening in Britain. You have a left government. Actually, I know Keir Starmer. I was excited when he won. And yet I believe he needs to be held accountable with what's happened with Mendelssohn. You have the British monarchy having to answer questions. I mean, the King of England is putting out statements. And yet in our country, we have not had that reckoning. People in power, whether they're in government, whether they're in finance, whether they're in technology, if they have been implicated in the files in morally embarrassing ways and in ways that shock the conscience, should be held accountable. And it should be regardless of party.
So you're calling for Howard Lutnick to resign?
I believe that Lutnick, at the very least, needs to be brought before Congress. I think, based on the evidence, he should be out of the cabinet. But it's people say, "Oh, you're just a Democrat saying that." No, I mean, look at what he is, how much influence he had with Epstein, and he wasn't transparent about it. But again, it's not about Lutnick, and it's not about any particular person. In this country, we have to make a decision. Are we going to allow rich and powerful people who were friends and no problem doing business and showing up with a pedophile who was raping underage girls? Are we just going to allow them to skate? Or like other countries, are we going to have elite accountability and have accountability for the people who did that? Most Americans believe we need accountability.
Can you confirm that
Thanks.
President Trump wasn't on this list?
No, I didn't see him on that.
hit the like, share, sub. Here comes Chuck Schumer from about 2 hours ago. And this is him with the victims press conference. I tried to show it a minute ago, but I had to choose a different source. Let's go. Here we go.
Well, I want to begin, of course, by recognizing the Epstein survivors who were here today. Virginia Giuffre's family who traveled here because they believe, as I do, that what happened to Virginia and to all the victims here today and throughout the world must finally lead to change. And all you have to do is look at the faces of these beautiful women and just have total empathy for what they've gone through, admiration for their courage, and anger about what happened to them. So, thank you. Today, we're here to do something simple and long overdue. Today, I'm introducing Virginia's law, legislation to end statute of limitation barriers that have kept survivors of sexual violence from justice far too long, and to create new legal avenues to pursue justice, because justice should not expire. Justice should not expire. And because for survivors, healing does not run on a government clock. I'm also so proud to be joined by Congresswoman Teresa Ledger Hernandez, not just chairwoman of the Democratic Women's Caucus, but she's always been a fierce advocate for survivors and a partner in this fight. She's a champion and a fighter, and that's what a bill like this requires, a fighter who will relentlessly push for the cause of justice. Justice. That's what we demand, justice. And here is World Without Exploitation and Sigrid McCauley, whose work, along with the survivors, helped shape this legislation. We thank her. The bill exists. Why? Why does the bill exist? Because people refuse to accept silence as the end of the story. It's that simple. It cannot be when something this dastardly and this terrible and this heart-wrenching happens. For years, survivors of Epstein's abuse were ignored. They were doubted, they were silenced, they were dismissed. And even when the truth finally came out, even when the world finally listened, too many survivors were still told by the law, it's too late. Your justice has expired. Not one wasn't real, not because the abuse didn't happen, but because the system ran out the clock. When they were told it's too late, your justice has expired, we aimed to change that. And that's what we're trying to do today. When you say the system ran out the clock, tough rocks, it's too bad, too late, that's not justice. That's a system that protects the waiting survivors out. Our law, Virginia's law, changes that. It allows survivors to seek accountability when they're ready, when they're strong enough, supported enough, able to face the weight of civil litigation. Sometimes it takes years to recuperate from the horror that occurred. Why should the government say, well, we're setting an arbitrary time when you are able to pursue your case? Our law makes clear that abusers and those that enable them cannot escape responsibility by running out the clock. It makes clear that the law will empower survivors to pursue justice, and it recognizes something survivors have always known. Time does not erase harm. Time does not erase harm. Jeffrey Epstein depended on silence and fear, on a system that protected power instead of protecting people. Today we are saying no more. This bill carries Virginia Giuffre's name because she spoke when so many were told not to. And because her story and the story of the survivors standing here today. We salute you again, all of you, for your courage. These nice faces, it shouldn't have happened to you. It shouldn't have happened to you. So, no survivor should ever be told again that the law failed them and that time mattered more than truth. The survivors of Jeffrey Epstein waited long enough. Virginia waited long enough. The time for justice is now, and Congress must act. So now let me call on our great leader in the House, Representative Teresa Leger Fernandez. Go.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leader Schumer, for your amazing work on this issue, which is not new. You have championed these issues for many, many, many years in the House and in the Senate. But I want to also acknowledge the survivors. We have shed tears together because what happened was horrible. The cover-up and the abuse that continued by refusing to acknowledge the pain and the crimes and everything that happened was also an injustice. And that's what we are here to do today, to say that justice delayed is indeed justice denied. And one of the lines that the survivor shared with me early in the many meetings we've had, and it's chilling, it's a chilling warning that Jeffrey told them. He gave them this warning. He told the women and young girls, I have the government, I have the banks. In other words, you are powerless. Imagine hearing that from the man who abused you. Imagine being a young girl, a young woman already traumatized and being told that the system, the government, the institutions, the courts, the powerful are on his side. That he and those to whom you were trafficked are untouchable. That the world is made up of the powerful who are above the law, above reproach, and you are disposable as a mere object of sexual use and abuse. And for too long, those sexual predators have been protected by their wealth and power. And now, with the help of Donald Trump and Pam Bondi, the pedophiles and sexual predators are being protected by our government. But today we're one step closer to proving Epstein wrong. But this bill is bigger than Epstein. It's bigger than the abuse that the victims endured. It takes years for victims of abuse to feel safe enough to come forward. And time should never be a weapon in the abuser's arsenal. Virginia's law eliminates the statute of limitations for key federal civil claims brought by survivors of trafficking and sexual exploitation. It includes a look-back window, so survivors who were previously barred, who were told, no, you do not have access to the courtroom. So they have time to now go back and seek justice. And it clarifies that traffickers cannot escape accountability by committing abuses in another jurisdiction. You don't get to escape prosecution by simply putting predators and victims on a plane to a private island or a mansion in Florida or a ranch in New Mexico.
The way you see an idea in your mind.
Because justice should not depend on a calendar. Justice should not depend on geography, and it should never depend on how powerful your abuser is. To Virginia Giuffre's family, thank you, thank you, thank you for letting us use her name in this law. It's her courage that we are honoring today with Virginia's law. Her courage unlocked the first set of gates that were protecting the rich and powerful. This bill will will unlock the doors to the courthouse for the survivors. And to every Epstein co-conspirator and sexual predator, we're coming for you. And to Donald Trump and Pam Bondi, how dare you? How dare you use the Department of Justice, a government agency which by its name is intended to bring justice, to use it to prevent justice, to protect yourself and that predatory circle of abusers. And so I join with the senator and with the leader. Yes, let's pass this bill. Let's prove Epstein wrong. And now I want to recognize, as I was talking to Sky and Amanda Roberts, we talked about how they couldn't have imagined that this day would come. And we talked about how, yes, it's been a long journey. But before Virginia, there was one of those big arroyos or chasms that you see in New Mexico, right? There was no way to cross it. But what Virginia did was build a bridge. And now we are crossing that bridge because of the bravery and the words and the wisdom. And I'm sorry for the loss of Virginia, but she has left something so powerful for all victims. And so I now like to recognize Sky and Amanda.
That was a tearjerker. I am the crier in my family. I'm just going to throw that out there. So, all right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sky Roberts, and I am the brother of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. I am deeply honored to stand here today alongside some of the most extraordinary people you will ever meet, including World Without Exploitation, Congressman Chuck Schumer, Congresswoman Teresa Ledger Fernandez, survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, and the legendary Sigrid Macaulay Young. Known to many of us as Siggy. I want to begin with a single word, a word that meant everything to my sister, a word we will not stop fighting for until real justice is served. And that word is change. Virginia's dream was to inspire and empower survivors to come forward. In a world that too often turns away from abuse and pushes it into the shadows, she wanted to bring light. That light is change. Virginia's dream was to inspire and empower survivors to come forward. One of the main missions of her nonprofit SOAR was to eliminate the statute of limitations on adult sex trafficking. She talked about it all the time while elevating the voices of survivors, alongside her publicist and dear friend, Deanie Von Muffling. Today, we give Virginia her voice back. We amplify the voices of survivors around the world. Today, we send a clear message to perpetrators everywhere by introducing Virginia's Law. We are introducing Virginia's Law because survivors deserve justice, not expiration dates. Change must mean justice, not someday, not in speeches, not in private settlements, justice in law, justice in court, and justice in the form of consequence. Virginia's Law is more than legislation. It is a change in the truest form. It challenges how we see, how we confront, and how we respond to sexual abuse and sex trafficking, not just in theory, but in reality. We do not take this moment lightly. We are holding an overwhelming mix of grief, loss, and pride. And if our voices shake and our tears fall, it is only because of the depth of our love for our sister. Grief without action is another kind of silence. And Virginia did not survive what she survived just to be silenced again. And with that, I'd like to turn that over to my wife, Amanda.
Streaming now. This is your call to stream.
Virginia was a passionate voice, a fierce warrior, and an unwavering advocate for survivors everywhere. She named what others were afraid to name. She stood up to wealth, status, and power, and she proved that having money does not guarantee exoneration in the eyes of the court. Virginia's purpose was always to create lasting change. Her truth and resilience helped spark a monumental shift in how survivors are seen and heard. But she also knew cultural change is not enough. She saw the legal gaps survivors fall through, and she was determined to close them at the legislative level. Her wish was clear: to reform the statute of limitations. When a child, teenager, or adult experiences sexual abuse, it is a profound violation of both the body, mind, and spirit. The mind often protects itself in the only ways it can, through denial, disassociation, and silence. It can take years, even decades, before the walls of trauma begin to crack, and a victim can truly understand what happened. It takes time to unlearn grooming. It takes time to release the shame that never belonged to them in the first place. Statistically, many survivors do not disclose until around the age of 40. Virginia understood this not as a theory, but as a lived experience. Virginia's law does more than honor her legacy. It protects the future of every survivor. It says legislatively and legally, we see you, we believe you, and what happened to you matters. It says you deserve the right to seek justice, no matter the status, wealth, or power of the person who harmed you, and no matter when the abuse occurred. To every member of Congress, mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers, we ask you to stand with us, stand with survivors, and say no more. No more silence, no more systems that protect the powerful and deny justice to everyone else. No more laws that treat survivors as though time can erase harm. Pass Virginia's law. Let this be the moment this country chooses accountability over denial, courage over comfort, and justice over obstacles. Page 361, Nobody's Girl. We need to make it easier to punish those who victimize others. Siggy and I want to eliminate laws that limit the period in which survivors can seek justice for their abusers. Virginia put that into writing, and we're here to put that into law.
And with that, Siggy, that's what we're here to do today.
Such courage.
Now everybody knows my nickname. This is really a watershed moment for survivor rights, the announcement of Virginia's law. And as you heard today, the genesis of that law is to get rid of the statute of limitations so that survivors can work on their own timeline. With the passage of this law, no longer can abusers weaponize the clock. Survivors can act when they're ready to act. As you heard, and as Virginia and I both experienced together, many survivors don't come to terms with their abuse until many, many years later. And they deserve the right to be able to bring an action when they're ready. That's what this law does.
It is heartbreaking to be here announcing this without her. But I will tell you that her voice is being heard loud and clear. She is saying all Americans, Democrats, Republicans, independents, all Americans need to come together and pass this law. It's the right thing to do. It's the thing we need to do now. So please pass Virginia's law. Now I'm going to let Rebecca Zipkin come up from World We. Without this group, we wouldn't be here. So we're all very grateful for that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Zipkin, and I'm the Policy Director at World Without Exploitation, and we are the largest national anti-human trafficking and sexual exploitation coalition in the country. And we have had the true privilege of working closely with the survivors who are here today and Sky and Amanda to push forward advocacy to release the Epstein files. And today we are privileged to be here to speak in support of Virginia's law. Thank you so much to Leader Schumer and Congresswoman Leger Fernandez for their championing of this legislation. Today we're here to support Virginia's law named Virginia Roberts Giuffre, whose courage helped expose one of the most far-reaching sex trafficking networks in modern history. Virginia's story is not just about one man, it's about a system of wealth, power, and protection that allowed abuse to continue for years while survivors were silenced, disbelieved, or legally shut down. Virginia spoke the truth and she paid the price for it. She did so knowing that accountability might never come, not because the abuse didn't happen, but because the law said it was too late. That is why eliminating the statute of limitations for civil claims by adult survivors of sex trafficking is so critical. Trafficking is not a single moment of harm. It is a prolonged, coercive, and deeply traumatizing experience. Survivors often cannot name what happened to them as abuse until years later. They may be threatened, manipulated, financially dependent, or psychologically trapped. Many are children when the abuse begins. Others are groomed into believing they consented when in reality, consent was impossible. The statute of limitations does not account for this reality. Instead, it functions as a legal shield for abusers and the institutions that enabled them. It cuts off accountability before survivors ever had the meaningful chance to come forward. Virginia's law recognizes a simple truth. Healing does not follow a legal deadline.
Protect your dreams under our roof.
Isn't this the dream, Grandpa?
American Family Insurance.
The deals are on at Best Buy.
Eliminating the statute of limitations does not guarantee survivors will sue. It simply gives them the choice. It restores agency, and it sends a clear message that time does not erase responsibility. Jeffrey Epstein did not operate alone. He relied on enablers, the men who were the buyers, the exploiters, and the abusers. Many of those individuals and institutions have never been held accountable, not because the facts are unknown, but because the courthouse doors have been closed. When civil claims are barred by time, accountability disappears. Virginia's law changes that. It tells survivors you were not too late, you were harmed, and the law will no longer be used to protect those who harmed you. And it tells the public that justice does not disappear simply because an arbitrary amount of time has passed. Justice is not about convenience, it's about courage. Passing Virginia's law is not about reopening the past, it's about finally confronting it. And we owe survivors, all of the survivors here today, and the thousands around the world, nothing less.
Let me say to Sky. So the Bible tells us when something terrible happens to people, the natural inclination is to curse the darkness, to turn inward, be angry. But the Bible also tells us it's like angelic to light a candle, to create light, to prevent what happened to your loved one from it happening to anyone else. You are lighting a candle. We thank you. Okay. We'll take questions on this subject. Yes.
Thank you very much. Mark Stone from Sky News in the United Kingdom. Thank you for inviting us here. That was a very powerful news conference. I have a question for you, Mr. Roberts, if that's right, and also for you, Senator Schumer. Mr. Roberts, the photograph of the then Prince Andrew with his arm around your sister has become, certainly in the UK, a defining part of this scandal. Clearly, he is one person who hasn't answered questions here. What is your message to Andrew Windsor today, please?
I think he should show up in front of our Congress and answer questions. I think that he has a lot of questions he needs to answer, and he has been exploited through these files to have inconsistencies in his own messaging. So I want today to be about Virginia's law, to not allowing this to happen again, but to Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to be specific. He needs to show up. He needs to show up, and he needs to answer questions in front of our Congress.
Senator Schumer, what was your message to?
He ought to, same thing as what Sky said. He ought to show up and show up now. Yes.
A question for you both and survivors in general. Do you believe that current officials, including Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, should resign given their proven ties and connections to Epstein?
I think we are far behind the UK when it comes to social justice. I think that, I think that we are starting to see a form of social justice here. And this is exactly why Virginia's law is so important, because legislatively it says that they can no longer hide. And that's where we're going to focus, the change that we can create.
Yes.
Mr. Leader, I'm wondering when you plan to go down to the Department of Justice to use some of the files and what you plan to look for to
Look, the whole file should be released completely. We got them to agree to let people come down. We have to make an appointment, and a number of my colleagues and I are considering doing that very soon.
What are you going to look for?
Everything. What's not disclosed, period. Yes.
Can you outline how this legislation builds on the bill that President Biden signed a few years ago? Were there shortcomings that this tries to fix? And you also mentioned new avenues for legal action.
Yeah, the bottom line is we want this to be, our law has no loopholes. We don't want any loopholes in this law because the lawyers for those who did such terrible things will exploit them. That's number one. And number two, we're going to pursue every legal avenue we can. Thank you. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Last answer for two.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to recognize that we need to provide protections and the avenue to the courtroom for everybody, whether you were a minor or an adult when you were abused. And we do need to go and see those files. I will be going, I believe, tomorrow morning. But the idea that we have to make an appointment and that they're scrutinizing and that they have failed to disclose under the Epstein Transparency Act half of the files. And when they've done so heavily redacted, protecting the predators and exposing their survivors. So we need to call out those actions by the Department of Justice at all times.
We are not going to rest till all the files are released, period. Whatever means we have to pursue. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you, everybody.
Paedophile and sex trafficker.
That pictures up on the wall.
The dozens of victims and the scale of his high-profile network.
They've been trying to stop Andrew from being a distraction, and now this has happened.
3 images
appearing to show him on all fours over a woman.
From former royals to celebrities to politicians, these files continue to cause aftershocks around the world.
None of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship.
The Prince of Darkness is gone.
It's potentially the biggest political scandal of this century.
We've gone through hundreds of thousands of files, emails, and photographs. So let's get into it. At the heart of this is the life and the crimes of one man. But this is a story about the survivors, the royals, the politics, and the famous faces. Most importantly, the survivors who have fought for years to bring these documents to life. These files aren't just about lurid photos or ill-advised friendships. They document in precise detail exactly what Epstein did. One document here shows a list of some of the witnesses. It looks dry and methodical until you see the ages, 17 years old for all these victims. At high school, these were school children, and they were abused hundreds of times. Other victims described being raped and beaten in graphic detail. Victims' journals are also included in the files. One victim took this pre-branded title, Flights of Fancy, and altered it. So it read Flights and Yachts of Horror. Some survivors spoke to Sky News after the files were published. For some, it brought back memories of what they went through. For others, fresh anger at not being protected.
One of the young girls came to the door and said, you know, Jeffrey's ready for his massage, and argued with the girls for a little bit because I don't know how to do a massage. And they said, well, you have to, you know, he requested you. So I went with the other girl who brought me to the island. I went into the room to do this massage, and the massage turned into sexual assault.
What we're seeing with the files is that there are extreme redactions and then extreme neglect to redact. I mean, a 5-year-old could have done a better job redacting these files with color-coded crayons. It is an embarrassment that our Department of Justice put this out as their very best work. It is shocking the damage that this Department of Justice has done with the way that they have released survivors' personal information out there when they literally had one job, which was to redact survivors' names.
In a letter to judges overseeing the cases brought against Epstein and Maxwell, U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton wrote that the department had taken down nearly all materials identified by victims or their lawyers, along with a substantial number of documents identified independently by the government. For years, we have seen Epstein through the prism of his relationship with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and the disgraced former prince, along with other former royals, were a crucial part of this release too. The best-known victim of Epstein was Virginia Giuffre, who died last year, and the files appear to support her version of events.
These are the puzzling pictures of the then Prince Andrew. 3 images appearing to show him on all fours over a woman who's lying on the floor. We don't know who she is or where and when the photos were taken, and Andrew has always strongly denied any wrongdoing. But once again, we're learning how close he was to Jeffrey Epstein. Exposing emails reveal more about their relationship and how Andrew continued contact after Epstein was a convicted sex offender, inviting him into the inner sanctum of royal life. We could have dinner at Buckingham Palace and lots of privacy, Andrew writes. Epstein replies, BP, please. And here, Epstein offers Andrew dinner with a Russian woman. Andrew says, great, any other information you might know about her that might be useful to know? Like, what have you told her about me? And have you given her my email as well? From Epstein, she 26, Russian, clever, beautiful, trustworthy, and yes, she has your email. Andrew claimed he cut off all ties with Epstein at the end of 2010, but emails suggest the 2 men were still in touch. And far from their friendship ending, Andrew and Sarah Ferguson were being helped financially by Epstein.
And the files necessitated a response from Andrew's wider family.
They've been trying to stop Andrew from being a distraction, and now this has happened.
I think it's all really important always to remember the victims and who are the victims in all this.
Andrew's younger brother, Edward, the first to be forced to respond on an official trip after those Epstein files were released, the first member of the royal family to talk about it. In some ways, really sticking to the official line, because you might remember in a statement back in October, when Andrew was stripped of his titles and his home, we heard that the King and Queen's thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. Now, while Andrew and Sarah Ferguson have continuously denied any wrongdoing, with Sarah also suggesting she was being blackmailed by Epstein, this latest release of files have again given us a bigger picture of the relationship between the Yorks and Epstein, and the fact it continued well after his conviction for those paedophile charges. One of the latest emails also shows that Sarah took her daughters Beatrice and Eugenie to Miami to see Epstein 5 days after he was released from jail. The first email comes from Leslie Groff, who is the assistant to Epstein, saying to him regarding the flights for the Duchess and the girls from Heathrow to Miami and from New York to Heathrow, we were able to get the girls on economy round trip and the Duchess on business round trip. Do I have your permission to purchase these tickets? There's then an email.
Do you think that these people are going to be held accountable at all? This is pretty crazy. None of these people are going to be held accountable.
From his assistant to Fergie's assistant, Amanda Lewis, which says, Amanda, can you please let me know where the Duchess will be staying while in Miami? Amanda then replies to Leslie, saying they'll be with Jeffrey at 1 o'clock for lunch. I hope this is okay. And then the final email is actually from Sarah Ferguson to Jeffrey Epstein, in which she says, it'll be myself, Beatrice and Eugenie. Are we having lunch? And Epstein replies, yes, vegetable lasagna. All of this extra information has just led to more demands for both Sarah and Andrew to open up more about what they knew, what they saw, and to help those authorities looking into Epstein's crimes.
And a reminder that being included in the files doesn't imply any wrongdoing. They stretch back decades, but they've set a bomb off under contemporary British politics.
Final nail in the coffin were these emails from 2009. Market-sensitive data sent straight from the heart of Number 10 to the paedophile financier. This, when he was Gordon Brown's business secretary, sealed the fate of a man who had already been forced out of public life twice before. Keir Starmer brought him back last year as our man in the US, a stunning political appointment to get Britain in with the Trump administration. But the political honeymoon didn't last long. In September, a birthday book from 2003 was released, where he described Epstein as his best pal. The Prime Minister sacked him after Number 10 said he lied about his contact with a convicted sex offender. But the scale of the relationship didn't become fully clear until the US Department of Justice released 3 million new Epstein files. Not only are there pictures of him in his underwear in Epstein's flat in Paris, and documents showing payments from Epstein to Mandelson's husband, there's no suggestion of any wrongdoing from him, but the bombshell emails appearing to show he was leaking repeatedly to Epstein with a final straw. The calls then began for him to be stripped of his peerage from across the political spectrum. Finally, with the writing on the wall, he has gone.
I decided to inform the House that the Clerk of the Parliament has today received notification from Lord Mandelson of his intention to retire from the House, effective from 4th February.
I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
What on earth just happened? Well, what you saw there is a government in full-blown retreat. It might not have looked like it, but make no mistake, this was a humiliating defeat, because not only do the government have to disclose all of the Mandelson files, but they don't get to decide which bits of it to hold back in the name of national security. They have to hand that decision over to the Parliament Intelligence and Security Committee. And who forced them to do that?
I truly believe that a lot of these releases weren't being released for that exact reason. For, to protect our country, because there is a lot of princes, kings, queens, etc. being implemented in this, and it's definitely going to mess up foreign relations. That was one of the first things that came to my mind.
Their own MPs.
There are well-worn filters through Parliament, through the Select Committee corridor, and there are various committees that could have locus in this space to properly and sensitively handle information. I think there is consensus, Mr. Speaker, that everybody wants as much information as possible in the public domain so that we can get to the bottom of what has happened.
Now, that intervention, and all of it, I should say, was kicked off by none other than Angela Rayner earlier in the debate, only came about because Labour MPs don't trust their own government. They want independent oversight of the Mandelson files. And if that wasn't a low point, it gets even worse for Keir Starmer, because the Met Police has now said that they don't want the government to release any evidence that might prejudice their investigation, the very evidence that Keir Starmer wants to release to prove to his MPs that he really was deeply misled by Mandelson. So that's another problem for Keir Starmer. The PM is in a serious bind because he needs to prove to his MPs that he was seriously misled. And I can tell you that his MPs are febrile, some of them feeling very, very compromised and wondering what they should do next. So this is a huge scandal. It's potentially the biggest political scandal of this century. How on earth did we get here?
Mandelson betrayed our country, our parliament, and my party.
Over the weekend, it emerged that Peter Mandelson, when he was in government in 2009, leaked market-sensitive, top-secret government information to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And to give you a sense of how serious this is, Mandelson is now under criminal investigation for this, for misconduct in public office and leaking confidential government information. And if he's prosecuted and convicted, well, he could face jail time. So that is pretty enormous, and I don't need to tell you how bad it looks, but that isn't where it ends, because the scandal has come right to the door of the current Prime Minister. And that's because last year, Keir Starmer personally brought Peter Mandelson back into government as the ambassador in Washington for the UK. It was a massive job, and I don't need to tell you that the Prime Minister has now massively ruined the day he took that decision.
I regret appointing him. If I knew then what I know now, he would never have been anywhere near government.
Peter Mandelson has said, "I was wrong to believe Epstein following his conviction and to continue my association with him afterwards. I apologise unequivocally for doing so to the women and girls who suffered." Epstein cultivated an extraordinary social network. Again, being included in these files isn't evidence of wrongdoing, but they show just how extensive and just how highly placed his acquaintances were. One of those names is...
So my question to the people in the UK, I could be ignorant, but I've never heard of this guy. If there's anybody in the UK that watches this or is watching, either comment or put it in the comments after the video, like, what's up with this dude, and is he like, what's his deal?
Is the world's richest man, Elon Musk. He's always denied any close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but they exchanged numerous emails trying to arrange a visit for Musk to Epstein's island in the Caribbean. In one of them, Musk goes on to write this: "What day, night will be the wildest party on your island?" Now, Musk has addressed those allegations directly on X. He wrote, "No one pushed harder than me to have the Epstein files released, and I'm glad that has finally happened. I had very little correspondence with Epstein and declined repeated invitations to go to his island or fly on his Lolita Express, but was well aware that some email correspondence with him could be misinterpreted and used by detractors to smear my name. I don't care about that, but what I do care about is that we at least attempt to prosecute those who committed serious crimes with Epstein, especially regarding heinous exploitation of underage girls."
Elsewhere in these files, an assistant to Epstein asks to bring 2 Russian girls to Branson's private island. This is April 2013. There's a reply that reads, "That's fine. How many people? Could we have all names, please? Best, Richard." Branson's team has confirmed that there were 2 brief business meetings on Necker Island in April and September 2013. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Virgin Group said, "Any contact Richard and Joan Branson had with Epstein took place on only a few occasions, more than 12 years ago, and it was limited to group or business settings." The statement goes on, "Had they had the full picture and information, there would have been no contact whatsoever." Richard believes that Epstein's actions were abhorrent and supports the right to justice for his many victims.
Bill Gates is the latest high-profile figure to face pressure after being named in the files. This photo of him is taken from there. We don't have the context around it. And again, merely appearing in the files isn't a suggestion of wrongdoing. Now, in one email sent by Jeffrey Epstein to himself, a draft email that was never sent on to anyone else, he accuses Bill Gates of catching a sexually transmitted infection and then secretly trying to provide antibiotics to his wife at the time, Melinda Gates. Bill Gates has rejected that allegation, saying it is false, and says he regrets ever meeting Jeffrey Epstein. Now, in another email sent by Epstein,
My question is, how can he deny that? How can he deny it, dude? Dude, Bill Gates has got to be the biggest liar out of all of this, and anybody we're dealing with. He has got to be one of the biggest scumbags on this earth, walking this earth right now, today. Bill Gates should not be walking this freaking earth unless it's in a cell. No way. Bill Gates is the scum. Everybody says this person's scum, this person's scum. I hope we all can agree. Bill Gates is scum, dude. Bill Gates, from everything, is just absolutely scum.
to himself, he says that he was helping Bill to get drugs in order to deal with consequences of sex with Russian girls. Again, he's denied those allegations, but his wife, Melinda Gates, his ex-wife, has said that he has to answer some questions.
For me, it's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage, but I have moved on from that. I purposely pushed it away and I moved on. I'm in a really unexpected, beautiful place in my life. So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those.
Okay, I accept what she's saying, but if you watch her whole interview, she goes on. I don't know if I didn't finish letting her talk, but if you go on, she definitely said, she like leaves him. And I ask you guys, do you think that she knew what was going on the whole time? Because I do. And when she left him, she didn't leave the foundation. She just left him. She later left the foundation, but she didn't leave the actual Bill Gates Foundation. She just left Bill Gates as the person. So
things, not me.
The co-founder of Microsoft has not been accused by any of Epstein's victims, and he called the allegations absurd and completely false. He also spoke on Australia's Channel 9.
I met Jeffrey in 2011. So over a period of 3 years, I had a number of dinners with him. The focus was always, he knew a lot of very rich people, and he was saying he could get them to give money to global health. You know, it's factually true that I was only at dinners. You know, I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, you know, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake.
is it factually true though? Chat. Is it factually true that he wasn't there? We all know you were, bro. There's pictures, there's everything. We all know you were. Stop lying. Then when they ask you, I hope he plays the interview. When they asked about him, he said, well, he's not here anymore, like, and made that weird smirk. That's evil, dude. That's evil. That's evil. Oh, we don't need to talk about him no more. He's on a...
It had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
The Clintons have capitulated. That's how they're framing it here on Capitol Hill. For months, Bill and Hillary Clinton had refused to testify before the congressional committee investigating Jeffrey Epstein. They said subpoenas issued by the Republican chair of that committee, James Comer, were invalid and not legally enforceable. The former president and former Secretary of State accused him of targeting them for opposing Donald Trump and vowed to fight this. But things changed when some Democrats on the panel joined Republicans in a vote recommending that they be charged with criminal contempt. If the Justice Department chose to prosecute them, they faced up to a year in jail and fines of up to $100,000. President Clinton had offered to sit for a 4-hour transcribed interview. Mrs. Clinton had offered to make a sworn declaration instead of testifying. But the chairman of the committee described that as a desire for special treatment and an affront to the American people's desire for transparency. Bill Clinton will be the first former president to appear before Congress since Gerald Ford did so way back in 1983. When President Trump was subpoenaed by the committee investigating the January 6th raid on the Capitol, he sued the panel and they backed down. Bill Clinton was acquainted with Jeffrey Epstein, but has said he never visited his private island and ended contact with him 2 decades ago. Hillary Clinton says she never met or spoke to Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, in his 2024 memoir called Citizen, My Life After the White House, Bill Clinton wrote, "The bottom line is, even though it allowed me to visit the work of my foundation, traveling on Epstein's plane was not worth the years of questioning afterward. I wish I had never met him." Epstein led a billionaire's life, and he led it brazenly. Prosecutors did repeatedly try to uncover the full truth of Epstein's crimes. The newest files contain a deposition of Epstein from 2010, part of a civil lawsuit. He invoked US constitutional amendments to refuse to answer questions.
Blaine Maxwell. I intend to respond to all relevant questions to this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide answers to any questions relevant to this lawsuit and must accept this advice or risk losing my right to effective representation. Accordingly, therefore, I assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right to the U.S. Constitution.
But his crimes, which went for so long unpunished, eventually led him somewhere very different: detention, prison, and death. That has proved little comfort for some victims who were denied a public trial. They have fought for the files to be released, and even...
Now let's see what the BBC has to say. I feel like these people need to be held accountable. We just watched Chuck Schumer yell about or talk about this Virginia's law. I hope that means that now it's start to hold people accountable. And these are the people that we already know. There's so many people that we already know that they should have been held accountable years and years and years ago. And if they haven't been then, why would they now? And that's where this whole thing has me rattled.
1,000 images and 2,000 videos. The latest release of files related to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein is shocking in its size and its content. Investigations are now underway in at least 10 countries. We're still combing through the detail, and every day we uncover more and more about the crimes of the disgraced financier and the people he was connected to. Well, over the next half an hour, we'll discuss the key revelations uncovered so far and the seismic impacts they've had. We have analysis from our chief North America correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue, in Washington. In Windsor, our senior royal correspondent, Daniela Relf. Our political correspondent, Nick Eardley, is in Westminster. Our analysis editor, Ros Atkins, is in our BBC Verify hub. And our business editor, Simon Jack, is here with me in London, as is Naomi Iqbal, who's been looking at the response from the victims and their families. Plenty to digest, but it all started exactly a week ago.
Today, we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the Act.
Well, it's been a whirlwind week. By Friday evening, the new documents showed Epstein and the former Prince Andrew kept a close relationship long after he was convicted in 2008. By the next morning, a photo had emerged of Andrew crouched on all fours over an unidentified woman. He has yet to comment on the latest release of documents, but has always denied any wrongdoing. On Sunday, Peter Mandelson was back in the spotlight. Documents revealed Epstein paid $75,000 into accounts linked to the former UK ambassador to the US between 2003 and 2004. He said he has no record or recollection of receiving the sums and didn't know whether the documents were authentic. Police have now started searches of 2 of his properties. On Monday, emails, which appear to be from Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife and former Duchess of York, illustrated the closeness of her relationship with Epstein, even whilst he was in prison. In one, she calls him the brother she always wished for. The emails do not indicate any wrongdoing. By Tuesday, the Met Police launched an investigation into Peter Mandelson. Documents suggested he'd been passing market-sensitive material to Epstein when he was business secretary in Gordon Brown's government in the middle of the financial crisis of 2008. He maintains he did not act criminally and did not act for personal gain. Well, Epstein had connections everywhere, from Norway to Poland to Australia, among them Bill Gates. On Wednesday, the billionaire said he regretted every minute he spent with Jeffrey Epstein. Among the latest tranche of documents, Epstein accused Gates of contracting a sexually transmitted infection from Russian girls, a claim he denies. On Thursday, the Prime Minister himself was facing huge pressure for appointing Mandelson as US ambassador. Keir Starmer fronted the media to apologise. Well, at the heart of this scandal are the victims, the survivors of the abuse orchestrated by Epstein. Our correspondent Nomia Iqbal has been following the scandal for a number of years. And Nomia, for the victims, there are multiple strands, aren't there? Satisfaction because they campaigned for so long for this, fury at the way that many have been identified, and a fear that perhaps some of the worst hasn't been released here.
That's right. There's so many strands because Matthew isn't just one abuser or one crime. Yes, Epstein was at the centre of it. His web spanned governments, royalty, finance, intelligence-linked circles in the US and the UK, years of institutional failure. But we are going through these documents one by one as journalists. We're analysing, we're verifying. But for survivors, this is their life. This is a case of reopening their trauma, their abuse. And in many cases, they're discovering aspects of their abuse that they didn't know. And you touched on it there. The Department of Justice, this is staggering. They accidentally released information about survivors who did not want to be identified, who've now been identified. And lawyers have said it's caused irreparable harm to them. I want you to have a listen to Marina Lacerda. Now, she's originally from Brazil, now lives in the US. She met Epstein when she was 14 years old, and he went on to exploit her for 3 years. This is what she had to say on seeing those files.
When I seen my files that are no longer obviously in the DOJ's website, I was in shock because there are things in there that I did not know. And I had to find out on that Friday when it was released. And it has drained me because I cannot stop thinking about it. And I'm heartbroken about this. I'm extremely, extremely stressed. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. I'm feeling every emotion, and they are not good. I'm going to be honest.
Marina, speaking there to BBC Newsnight. Let's also hear now from Ashley Rubright, who was introduced to Epstein sometime after she turned 15. She had this to say on the fight for justice.
We didn't choose this fight. We would have much rather have just been moms or, gone after our careers and him just be a distant memory. But, we weren't able to heal in peace. So now we're screaming in public because we don't have a choice anymore.
And also Amanda Roberts, she spoke to the BBC Newsnight programme. Now, she is the sister-in-law of Virginia Giuffre, who is one of the most prominent accusers of Epstein and the former Prince Andrew. She was in that infamous photo where Mountbatten Windsor is seen with this arm around her. Ghislaine Maxwell, who's also in that photo, who was convicted in 2021 as Epstein's co-conspirator, has confirmed seemingly that that photo is real. The former prince has always denied any wrongdoing. He previously even questioned whether that photo was real. He claimed it was doctored and said he'd never met Giuffre. Now, Virginia died by suicide in April 2025. Have a listen to what her sister-in-law, Amanda Roberts, had to say.
It's a whirlwind. I think this moment I felt a moment of like such overwhelming emotion because I wish that she was here to see this. She fought so hard and so long against all odds, and she still was just so... She was so strong for everyone, not just for her, but for her survivor sisters and every single survivor who has been discounted. And so this moment, it's a bittersweet moment because we're proud of her and her accomplishments. And finally, I think the world is really beginning to see the truth. And so we're proud of her, but we miss her greatly in this moment because she should be reveling, in this moment.
Amanda Roberts there. Now, the only institution doing any...
I absolutely agree. I agree that the people that don't know, they're being blackpilled and they're being forced to know what's going on. So all of us that have been holding this in and talking about it for a decade plus, finally the other people are getting to see what we've been talking about. So whatever happened to you, Virginia, God bless you and RIP to you, but just know that you are doing something.
Kind of investigation as Congress, but they don't have charging powers. They are due to hear from, as I mentioned, the person that has been convicted, the only person, Ghislaine Maxwell. She is due to give a deposition next week. That is likely to re-traumatize survivors, especially because, yes, they wanted these files released, but they want accountability. They want investigations. They want people arrested. They want people charged. They want people jailed. And so releasing these files, and there's more to come yet, we understand, for them, it's simply not a closed chapter.
Nomia, thanks very much. Let's focus now on the epicenter of this entire scandal and the politics around the release of these documents in the United States. Let's go to our chief North America correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue. And Gary, Donald Trump resisted this move for a year. Now he's saying the country should move on. So talk me through the reaction there has been there.
Well, there's been horror, really. A lot of the fresh revelations that have come out of these 3 million plus documents over the last few days. And of course, people are still going through those things, still finding things, still finding photographs, still finding identifying information about some of the survivors. In fact, the Department of Justice said that it expected to have released information erroneously and had set up an email address beforehand for people to get in touch to have things brought down. So they knew this was coming down the line, but they argue they were under a deadline. They say their work is done, that their review of these documents is over, and that there is no grounds to prosecute anyone at all, apart from Epstein, of course, who's dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison for 20 years. No other prosecutions currently being looked at. That is something, of course, that's incredibly difficult for many of the survivors to contemplate. They think, how can there be so much information, so much circumstantial information without anyone else being held accountable? And of course, we do know that the FBI were looking into co-conspirators, a number of co-conspirators, but we still don't know who those people are and to what extent they were investigated and what reasons there might have been for not prosecuting them. So there's that. And as Nomia was saying, Congress is the only real body that's looking into this now. It's a Republican-led House of Representatives. It's conducting its investigations. Yes, Ghislaine Maxwell next week, but also at the end of the month, the Clintons will be here in Congress giving evidence to that committee. They declined, refused to do so for months, but it was the threat of contempt proceedings and potentially jail that has made them decide to come here. And they want to do it.
I paused it a little too soon, but he was about to say, and they want to do it broadcasted on national television when they do their hearing. I'm telling you, it's going to be a show. They are going to definitely put on a show. There is no way they're not. If you guys have watched any of Hillary's past hearings, she has no problem lying. She is a very good speaker. And yeah, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of burying of Donald Trump and other people, and they're going to make themselves look innocent. Watch, mark my word.
In public. We'll see whether that happens. If it does, Matthew, that will keep this thing going in a big way.
Gary, a quick one. The material not released, will that ever become public?
Well, there's certainly a lot of pressure from members of Congress, on both sides, in fact, and indeed from the survivors to get that stuff released. It's pretty vague about what it is. Some of it apparently is child pornography. Some of it is images of death. It was described as by the Deputy Attorney General. But he also said there was other material that was sort of a personal nature, medical nature. And people will be saying, well, what is it? What can we see? Can we see the redactions in the stuff that has been published? All these questions remain. And yes, of course, there are still some documents in New York that may come out as well, but still a bunch of questions about the material that's already out there and what they're keeping back.
Gary, thanks very much. Well, let's go from Washington to Westminster and to our political correspondent, Nick Erdley. And Nick, such a contrast between what is happening in the US and happening here, because there has been a political earthquake in the last week with the Prime Minister fighting to stay in his job.
Well, it absolutely has. The impact of the publication of these files has been profound in the UK. We already knew that Lord Mandelson had been sacked as US ambassador because more links with Jeffrey Epstein had emerged last year. But this tranche of documents shows a very different relationship. It shows just how close they were, but also that Lord Mandelson appears to have passed some sensitive information on to Jeffrey Epstein, sensitive UK government information from when Lord Mandelson was business secretary here. Stuff that included discussion over asset sales in the UK government, including information about a potential Eurozone bailout after the financial crisis. And that has really led to the earthquake you talk about in British politics, because Lord Mandelson is now no longer a member of the House of Lords. He's no longer a member of the Labour Party, in which he was so consequential for the past few decades. There is now a massive question over the Prime Minister himself and whether his future is guaranteed because of his judgment of putting Lord Mandelson in the US. To say that the public potentially bring down a Prime Minister.
Well, exactly, on that documentation and the paperwork that's going to become public, real peril about what around the appointment, but wider.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the knock-on consequences of the Epstein files in the UK has been, one, a police investigation into Lord Mandelson, two, Parliament voting to publish all the information the UK government holds about the vetting process all communications between Lord Mandelson, government ministers and special advisors. That's potentially affirmation. Now, we might not see a committee of parliamentarians will decide if some stuff has to be held back because it's sensitive either for national security or international relations. That's pretty controversial in and of itself. But we are going to see a lot of information published by the UK government. A lot of it could be very problematic for Number 10. Number 10 says it will show that Lord Mandelson lied during his vetting process. My understanding is Lord Mandelson insists he was accurate in the answers he gave. But all of this comes back to that tranche of documents published in the US. Had that not been published, this trickle down of crises for the UK government wouldn't have happened. As it stands this afternoon, Keir Starmer is still in his job, but plenty of his own MPs, Labour MPs, aren't sure how long that will be the case.
Nick, thanks very much. Let's go straight to Windsor and our senior royal correspondent, Daniela Ralph. And Daniela, as we've already touched on, we've seen that new grim photo of Andrew crouching over a young woman, an email that appears to confirm the picture with Virginia Giuffre was real, grubby emails from Sarah Ferguson with her taking her daughters to meet Epstein in the week after his release from prison. It is devastating stuff, isn't it?
It is. It's been a really difficult and damaging week for the royal family. And what has become crystal clear reading through so many of those emails this week is that the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, was very close. And in reading them all, you also get a sense of the power play in the relationship as well. And it's very clear that the power lay with Jeffrey Epstein. When you read the exchanges, his replies to them are quite curt, are quite factual, but their responses to him are almost over-complimentary. They're fawning, they're even desperate at times in tone. And I think looking at this latest drop of Epstein files has taught us a lot about the nature of the relationship between the three of them. The photos, as you mentioned as well, have also been extremely damaging and really unsettling. I think perhaps that one that emerged last weekend, or a series of them, of a barefoot Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, casually dressed, leaning over someone, a woman lying down on the ground. We think that is in Jeffrey Epstein's home in Manhattan. It's not clear what the context is or quite what was going on. But again, it is damaging, it is unsettling, it's upsetting. And again, as you say, that photo, the photo that really, in my mind, marks the start of the downfall of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, of him standing with Virginia Giuffre, with Ghislaine Maxwell in the background, a photo he said he had no recollection of. He even questioned during his BBC interview whether it had been doctored in some way. We now know from an exchange of emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell that it appears that Ghislaine Maxwell says that photo is real.
And Daniela, growing pressure for the police to investigate Andrew and growing pressure on the palace and the king to do more to pressurize Andrew to cooperate with the US authorities. We see in these emails countless efforts to do that have been.
I mean, realistically, Prince Andrews is another one that just needs to go. There's so much proof against him. The fact that that nothing's happened and no one's screaming at the top of their lungs about it is amazing to me.
Frustrated.
Yes, all sorts of different paths that the authorities have taken to try and persuade Andrew Mountbatten Windsor over the year to talk to them, to share information with them, that just hasn't been successful. And it's been really interesting watching the response from the royal household from Buckingham Palace over the course of the past week. We haven't heard anything directly except from Prince Edward, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's younger brother, who was asked a question about it at a conference he was speaking at in Dubai, and said that his thoughts were with the victims. He said there are a lot of victims in this situation. The King and Queen have been out and about in the UK this week. They were thrown questions. People shouted questions at them, but there was no response from them either. Sources within the royal household do say to us that, at the end of the day, whether Andrew Mountbatten Windsor gives evidence to the authorities is ultimately going to be down to one thing, and that is his conscience.
Daniela, thanks very much. Well, Jeffrey Epstein kept friends in high places. The British royal family is not the only one under pressure. The Crown Princess of Norway,
Okay, now I'm heading to Florida. I think we got an idea of what's going on. Now I'm heading to Florida. The AG is this should be interesting. This should be an interesting press conference.
This is yet another day where we're here to announce a predator that got to a minor, a young girl, and took advantage of her online using social media applications. Parents, wake up. People at home are preying on your kids. They're soliciting information. They are deviants. They want to do bad things, and you are the first line of defense. So again, I'll say, parents, wake up. If you do not know what your kids are doing on their cell phones, you better figure it out today. You could stop serious abuse. You could stop molestation. You could stop the solicitation of sexual imagery of little boys and little girls. You could save lives. Today, we're here to announce the arrest of 29-year-old Justin Adkins of West Warwick, Rhode Island. Again, this is happening from other states, parents. People from other states are getting to your kids online and taking advantage of them. It can happen anywhere at any time. Justin Adkins is currently facing charges, 2 child molestation charges in Rhode Island. And here we have taken him down after he developed a relationship with a young girl, a minor, online. They met through the gaming app Fortnite. This is what the icon looks like if you're looking at a cell phone. Fortnite, a gaming application. From there, they moved to Snapchat. That's what the icon looks like if you're looking at a cell phone. We see this time and again. They moved to Snapchat because images and text communications can be erased rather quickly. It's a way to avoid law enforcement. This time it didn't.
What we can do, Stoney, you asked what can we do? I mean, me showing this video right here is showing what we can do, which is focus, and I say this every time, on our own area, our own communities, because it's happening everywhere, not just elites, not just billionaires, but everywhere. So if you really, really want to focus on saving the children, I think you start with your own area, as well with anything else when it comes to that topic. Honestly.
We've got thousands and thousands of files associated with this criminal deviance Snapchat account, hundreds and hundreds of images of child sex abuse content, including many with this victim. After meeting and talking on Snapchat, he then sent Robux using the app Roblox to give this young girl, lavish goods. He sent her an iPhone because he wanted better content in the imagery. That's how sick this dude was. He purchased her things, sent her a digital currency through the app Roblox. Roblox, the state of Florida, has sued both civilly and criminally. Time and again, we see child abuse happening, and it originates through relationships on that application. These companies, they're making way too much money, and they're not doing enough to protect our kids. If you've got adults that are able to go on the application anonymously, pretend to be young kids, develop these relationships, send money to kids in exchange for things, and then start soliciting sexual imagery and more, it's wrong. This cannot happen. More security protections need to be put in place. So again, Snapchat and Roblox, parents, go home, look at the phones. If you see these apps, you need to be prepared. You need to look at the tools that are available to you to, review and monitor the content on your children's phones. You need to decide, do you even want the child to have this application in the first place? It's dangerous, but you got to wake up. This individual is going to spend a long time here in Florida. We got the #1 in-migration in Florida. We don't want it to be for these reasons, but we'll have him extradited here this week, and hopefully he'll spend the rest of his life in this state. We've got to keep these people off the roads, away from our little boys and girls. I want to thank the people that are here with me today. We've got Green Cove Springs Police Chief Sean Hines. They did a tremendous job in this case, and many others. He and his whole team have been wonderful when it comes to rule of law and public safety. Here in Clay County, you've got a wonderful sheriff too. We've got the best sheriffs in the country, and that's why Florida is reaching even further record low crimes. Commissioner Mark Glass from FDLE, we've been on the circuit lately. It's a good day if I'm starting it with him, because that means we're putting more bad guys away. And in Florida, we prosecute to the fullest. This case will be no different. If you break the law, we're going to come at you. We're going to throw the book at you, and we're going to make sure we keep you away from our Florida families for as long as possible. Emily Frazier from our statewide prosecution office is pointing the prosecution. It's clear that she's not going to be handing out any plea deals. Again, we're going to be prosecuting to the fullest, ensuring public safety is number one. These perverts, these deviants, they think that the screen, the anonymity will protect them. They think they can do whatever they want and that they're shielded by this technology and that they will get away with it. Not on our watch. We're going to hold them accountable. We're going to put bad guys away, and we're going to send a message to these bad guys. If you do this stuff to any Florida resident, we will come after you, and you will spend the rest of your life, hopefully, in our Department of Corrections. Finally, again, to the parents at home, wake up. This is serious. If you don't know what's going on, you better figure it out. You are the first line of defense. You are the first law enforcement. We're going to be there fighting the good fight, but this is only a fraction of what's going on out there, and we need your help. So thank you again for being here. This is an important announcement. It's good to get these guys. We hate having to talk about it because it shows the sick reality of what's out there. But at the end of the day, we're going to stand firm on rule of law, and we're going to protect our kids at absolutely all costs. With that, I'll turn it over to Chief Hines. This side.
I have a quick prepared statement, but before getting into that, I'd just like to say on behalf of our acting city manager, Mr. Null, and our city council, all our guests, thank you very much for visiting our city today.
Wherever you are, we're 0 miles from everywhere.
Even way out here?
Oh, yeah.
All right, the Green Cove Springs Police Department wishes to sincerely thank our law enforcement partners, including the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, statewide prosecution, and the West Warwick Police Department in West Warwick, Rhode Island, for their cooperation and dedication during this investigation. This was a serious felony case involving sex crimes against a juvenile victim in our jurisdiction. Despite the complexity of the case and the fact that the adult male suspect resided in the state of Rhode Island, the investigators remained steadfast in pursuing justice. On February 2nd, 2026, a detective from the Green Cove Springs Police Department, along with an FDLE agent, traveled to the state of Rhode Island, furthered the joint investigation, and successfully apprehended the suspect. He is currently in custody and awaiting extradition to Clay County, Florida. The safety of our children and our community remains our highest priority. As Chief of Police for the city of Green Cove Springs, I want our residents to know that we take our responsibility to protect this community seriously. We will continue to work diligently and collaboratively to investigate crimes thoroughly, hold offenders accountable, and ensure that victims and their families receive justice and support. Now we'll turn it over to Commissioner Glass.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Good morning. I'm FDLE Commissioner Mark Glass. And just like the General said, we've been doing this a lot now lately, and part of this is more preventative. Us getting out here, doing this in front of you and different parts of the state, showing this is going on all over the state. And like the General talked about, parents, pay attention what they're doing. My kids growing up did Fortnite. They had Snapchat, but I was on their phone the whole time. I paid the bill. So there's no expectation of privacy in my house until you start paying your own bills. You should be the same. If you don't know what you can do to help or things to look for, you can go on the FDLE's website of secureflorida.org and pay attention to that. We'll give you the tools, the things that can help you fight this, because we're dealing with a bunch of sickos, deviants, malcontents, whack jobs, whatever you want to call them. They shouldn't even be in our community. They should be behind bars, which thankfully the General, Green Cove Police Department, and also too the statewide prosecutor is going to be putting the hammer down on this person. So what we want to just kind of show to you guys is there's many ways to pay attention to this. If it's a family member, if it's a friend, you start seeing signs, I encourage all of you, even if you don't have children, go to secureflorida.org and start paying attention to different things you can see. Notify your local police department. Victims, if you're hearing this, we hear you. give us a sign, give us some reason to let us help you. There's wraparound services to help you and your family out of this. There's no need to be feeling like someone's going to be intimidating you. We will take that from you. Do not worry about that, and we will protect you. We are very fortunate in this state, in the free state of Florida, that we have a governor and a strong attorney general who won't put up with this. And I've been enjoying being able to work side by side with him, his Office of Statewide Prosecution, and also the chiefs and the sheriffs of this great state, putting these whack jobs in jail. Be followed by the pointy end of the spear, who also makes things happen, Ms. Emily. Thank you.
Good morning. I would just like to thank the Green Cove Springs Police Department, FDLE, the statewide prosecutor, and the Attorney General for their support. This case really was a collaborative effort, and the hard work and dedication of all the people involved is how we were able to get to this point today. I would also like to thank the West Warwick Police Department and the West Warwick Attorney General's Office for their assistance in this case. We look forward to pursuing this case in court.
Thanks, Emily. It's prosecutors like Emily that have to go face these guys head on and put them away, present the case, go through the evidence. A lot of that can be very gruesome, deal with victims that have been through, some of the worst abuses. They do it because it's a calling. We're thankful in Florida. People have no idea how many wonderful people like Emily are working day in and day out to, fight the good fight and protect our communities. I think as Commissioner Glass said, if there are victims out there, please come forward to us.
It kind of bothers me that whenever there's like stuff that's actually like gonna help us learn something, YouTube just wants to shut it down. They had no problem talking about the Royals and stuff that's never gonna come to fruition. But when you talk about this and you're actually showing that they're catching people and what's going on in your actual, they don't really like that too much. They really don't.
I know it can be a scary situation.
Obvious.
This case we're talking about today, once this criminal realized he might be losing control and wasn't getting the responsiveness he wanted from this victim, he started making very serious threats. And that causes a lot of people to continue going on, sending messages, engaging in behavior, filming it. People make threats, they extort, they threaten to make things public where the world can see. That's wrong. We're not going to stand for it. If you come forward, we will help you, and we will make sure that these sickos can never get anywhere close to you again. That's our commitment. I think that's it. We got time for a few questions. Yes, sir.
This morning, there was an ex post put out by you saying that the Office of Rules, commands, MCP servers, subagents, modes, hooks, tools. There's a lot of stuff, and I don't think it needs to be this complex. So I want to talk about the most important things and then also share some of the history on how we've got here. Okay, let's start with rules. When agents were first getting started, models would frequently hallucinate things, and a rules file was a way of including context in every single conversation about your code base or business requirements or just things that you would see the model get wrong every time. And this worked pretty well. Over time, as the rules files got longer and we kind of figured out the right way of doing this, they then broke into sub files so you could statewide prosecution sending criminal subpoena to the big administration in Jacksonville. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, we have a situation here where a city official was out there publicly alerting people to ICE locations, interfering with immigration enforcement efforts. This is the state of Florida. It's not Minnesota. We anticipated at special session last year, the governor, under his leadership, made clear we were going to put obligations in that law that passed where local officials, they do not have discretion. There's an obligation to use best efforts to facilitate, help the federal government carry out their law enforcement efforts. We're a rule of law state. We believe in that. We stand by that. And if there's evidence that, the city as a whole, I know the mayor said nothing wrong happened here, we disagree with that. So we're looking at it. If there's a coordinated effort for this city official to work with other city employees or outside NGOs to try to thwart our efforts to enforce the law, then we will hold these wrongdoers accountable. Yes, sir.
In terms of what criminal statute might be violated, are you looking at state law or are you looking at, I've heard the suggestion, maybe RICO?
Yeah, if there's a coordinated effort amongst officials, I know there's NGOs out there that very clearly are working to, push forward these protests to try to thwart federal investigative efforts. Then yes, we could be looking at RICO. There could be some federal angles. But first and foremost, again, we got a law in the books passed last February. Local officials have a duty to help the federal government carry out the law. There's also in Florida, we have anti-doxing laws. If you want to flag personal information, locations, details about law enforcement officers to try to harass them, scare them, threaten them, or impede law enforcement operations, that is a crime. We will not stand for that. We want these officials in our state. They enforce the law. We don't have issues in Florida. We don't have the chaos. We don't have the anarchy. We don't have the mayhem in the streets. We work together with federal law enforcement. It goes pretty dang well. So what we're doing in Florida works. And if city officials think they know better than the law, we're going to stand in their way. Yes, sir.
About the topic here, you guys mentioned that there's resources on the website to help try to prevent that with the children. For parents who are watching who are going, I don't even know where to start. What's that first step that you guys tell them to take?
First start is you got to get that cell phone in your hand. You got to get access. You got to get into it. If your kid has a passcode, if you've got a child with a phone, that's the first conversation really is, what age is it appropriate to have a phone? And maybe, maybe a flip phone or something without the internet is the better place to start. Again, that's a conversation for parents and kids. We did, under the leadership of Speaker Paul Renner, we passed a law where younger teenagers are not allowed to have access to some of these social media sites in Florida. And those companies have an obligation to have age verification and keep them off. Not all those companies are following it. We're going to be litigating this and we're going to be holding people accountable. But parents, get that phone, get access to it. I'll hold up these apps again. Until I became Attorney General, I'd never heard of some of these. I've never had these apps myself, but Fortnite here, it's been around for a little while. It's a gaming app. But again, it's a place where a stranger, an adult in another state, can get access to your little girl. Roblox here in the middle. Another one of these virtual reality games where people can pretend to be others. They can create whole universes, but they can be communicating with strangers. You got to be aware of this. Snapchat on the far side over here is one you probably heard of. People send pictures and texts and they disappear. That's why perverts prefer that application over a lot of others. But our technology is good. Law enforcement's getting ahead of the curve. We're going to catch them when they try to use this app to exploit little kids. So look at these.
Thank God I have no kids. I to all the parents out there, this should be an eye opener right there. That should be your eye opener, and that should be make sure you watch what your kids are doing. I mean, there's the government, it's not their responsibility to watch your kids. So whatever you do, if you give your kid the phone as a source of entertainment so you can do what you got to do, get ready for work or make sure you have the right precautions on that so that they can't get into these things. Thank God for me, I've never even played Fortnite. I don't know what Roblox is, and I've never had a Snapchat. Is that what it is? Snapchat in my whole life. I have no idea about none of that stuff at all. So, but parents, please, if people want to stop this whole entire what we've been talking about, the first thing you got to do is start right in your own house, in your own community. What's up, Bot Boy? I'm glad I don't have girls. I have parental permission for both my kids. Exactly, Bot Boy. Look, dude, you got to watch your kids' stuff. And, we've got to understand that kids are way smart. And I hate to say it, but they're smarter than us, dude. You give a kid a phone, they will find what they want. They will get what they want. and it will come to them. Unfortunately, JTube and these other platforms seem to cater to these type of content creators and these type of platforms. So, you know, you definitely got to watch your kids. I mean, for real. Like, I don't know what else to really say about that one. I mean, that one should be your very first clue in life. Like, hey, we got to protect our children. We got to put permission blocks so that they can't watch certain things, do certain things, and they'll get around it. They'll get around it, but you got to stay on their butt. You got to stay on them. Otherwise, this story could be about your child, and we do not want that. And I think that should be the lesson that we learn from all of this, from all of this conversation that we're having when it comes to this Jeffrey guy, and it comes to all the things going on in the world and in our country. And in, you know, the one thing that they can't take away from you is your right to parent. They can do anything they want to you, but you'll still always be a parent, and you go down. You should want to go down with your kid. Before you ever let anything like that ever happen, you should be first to go down before them, man. Like, come on. Don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Look out for your kid. Look out for your kids. Come on. Don't just hand them the phone and the iPad or whatever you give them and say, here you go. If you don't think that they won't end up on that Roblox site or what's the other one? Fortnite, they will. Trust me, they will. Believe it. You know, Bob Boy, you know what I'm saying. We were kids, and these kids are way smarter. They grew up with technology. I bet you I could give my nephew my laptop, or not my laptop, let's say my phone. I bet he could pull up stuff that I couldn't even think about pulling up. And he doesn't even know what he's doing. It's the algorithms, man. It's the algorithms. They feed it. They feed. We gotta remember that stuff. They feed us with these algorithms, and they're evil. And we're over here trying to break them. And it's funny because we go, well, what do you mean by algorithms? Well, for example, we know Ryan likes little people. So for a while, we were trolling Ryan with little people on Instagram, like little shorts, you know? Now, every time I go on Instagram, it's nothing but little people. Or like we'll be having a conversation about not sleeping right. You name it. And your phone's listening to you. Your laptop's listening to you. My TV's listening to me. When I get off from this stream, there will be things that were mentioned in this show that will pop up in my suggestion feed. That's just an absolute fact. And you guys have all witnessed it. Anybody that's watching this knows that's damn true. Every one of us have seen it happen. Sitting there talking about, man, I wouldn't mind some pizza right now. I wouldn't mind like some McDonald's. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. And then all of a sudden you see McDonald's in your suggestion feed. That's a real thing. So if you don't think that they can't feed stuff in your child's feed, you're crazy. Absolutely crazy. But I'm here to, I think we all know this by now, but people want to ask, what can we do? Well, that's the simple things. It may sound simple. I said simple because I don't have any kids. So, take that for what it's worth. I know it's not that simple. I get it. It is hard. I get it. But sometimes we got to put our feelings to the side and not give a damn what these kids think and protect them. For real. Because I do see a lot of parents who do try to keep their kids away from stuff and be, you know what I'm saying? And they end up giving in. Giving in. You got to hold your ground. It's the only way you're ever going to teach your child. That's it. You got to stand your ground, man. You got to teach them. They're not going to learn from school. You don't want them to learn from classmates. You don't want them to learn from school teachers. None of that. That's something we don't want to worry about. That's something that we really don't need to worry about. Bob Boy, how many kids do you have, brother? How many kids do you got, bro? I think I might have just absolutely destroyed the algorithm. I don't know. I might have just destroyed it. It's probably just gonna end it here in a minute. Give it a couple of minutes. I'll BS with y'all. But yeah, I mean, what did I have anything else that was like quick? Oh, I got this real fast. I don't think it's going to pop the algorithm at all. So if this does not do anything and it goes down, forgive me if I end the stream. It either is going to re-kick or not. But there was a school pew-pewing today. So let's see what happened with this school pew-pewing in Maryland. A kid, I believe, I don't know if he was unalived or not, but there was this happened in Maryland.
Right now, where the victim remains in stable condition at this hour. Rockville City Police detectives with our partner agencies are continuing this investigation. This is a very active and ongoing investigation at this time. We're collaborating with the Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office regarding charges that are forthcoming in today's incident. With that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Chief McBain, who will talk more about our coordinated response.
Thank you, Chief. So as the Chief indicated, we responded to Wooten High School this afternoon for a shooting in progress. Montgomery County officers from the 1st District, along with Rockville City Police Department and the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department all responded. Additionally, Montgomery County officers from adjoining districts responded as well when the call went out. Officers began creating incident action teams, immediate action teams, and started pushing their way into the school in an attempt to find the shooter and or victim. And as Chief West indicated, we located the one victim and extricated him from the school, preparing him for transport to a local area hospital. While that was going on, Montgomery County Police Emergency Services Division SWAT team officers were responding to the school, arrived to the school, and began a methodical and slow search of the school for any additional suspects and any other victims in the school. That amount of time, but we worked with our partner agencies. We worked with Montgomery County Public School and their security team, and we effectively and safely cleared the school of any other suspects in the school. We're continuing to search the school for any additional evidence, and we continue to work this scene with our partners at Rockville City. I want to thank the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department. I believe that we had approximately 7 canine dogs that responded to the school to conduct searches, and it was just an incredible partnership and coordinated effort to keep the students safe and to effectively get them out of the school safely and reunited with their parents. I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Thomas Taylor with Montgomery County Public Schools.
Thank you, Chief. And I want to apologize to members of the media that were waiting out here in the cold. I'm sorry that you had to wait, but we had to prioritize student safety and get our students reunited with their parents. That was the priority this afternoon after today's incident. And today is a heartbreaking and deeply unsettling day for our entire community. The kids and our staff are emotionally exhausted and understandably traumatized by today's events. We understand that news like this creates an immediate fear and leaves many unanswered questions because every kid does.
I'm not saying that this is fake. I'm not at all. But it just seems ironic that we haven't heard about any of these in a really long time. The news cycle is kind of dying down. The only people that are really up front are the people they don't want us to talk about. I just find it kind of coincidental that this happened and that Nancy Guthrie case is happening. You know, they just keep throwing these. I wonder how long we'll hear about this. I wonder how long this stays in the
deserves to come to a safe learning environment and a safe school community. Our hearts and full support are with every student and staff member and family affected by today's events. As soon as this incident occurred and was identified, we immediately initiated a school lockdown and alerted emergency services. Law enforcement and emergency responders were able to be on scene within minutes. I'd like to extend my special thanks to the City of Rockville Police Department, Montgomery County Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, City of Rockville and Montgomery County government, emergency services who have been on scene and supportive. They are the model of collaboration and support through today and have helped us in this process. We have emotional supports that are in place for our students and staff for the remainder of the week and beyond as we navigate through this difficult time. Thank you so much, and I'll turn this back to Chief to take questions.
A question for Dr. Taylor, actually. You mentioned this is a traumatizing time for families and for everybody involved. Why did it take now 6 hours and almost 10 minutes to get in front of cameras and tell folks what are going on, especially when so many parents told us, and we read the messages they were getting from MCPS. They were confusing. They tell them to go one place and then to hold and stay put. Why did it take such a long time to at least preliminarily get in front of the cameras and tell people what's going on?
Well, we were communicating with our parents through our protocol, which is to send regular updates as to what's been happening, and we have done that. Learning from mistakes of the past, we wanted to prioritize our student safety and make sure that reunification was the priority, and so that we have done. This is an ongoing investigation, so there are limitations to what we can share, and we're here today to share that information right now.
Were there any community engagement officers, SROs inside the school at the time of this shooting?
The Rockville City Police Department has a community engagement officer assigned to Wooten High School. During the time of the shooting, that officer was attending to an issue at Lakewood Elementary School. Was on duty, was not at the school at the time of the shooting, but due to our quick response, we had responding officers on the scene within minutes.
Does a shooting like this make you change your policies and make sure that there's an officer at every school pretty much at all times of the day?
It is the priority of our police department in the city of Rockville that we provide public safety to all of our schools in our community. I stand behind my original statements months ago when we put our officer at Wooten High School. I think a collaborative partnership between law enforcement and our school community keeps our children safe, and we're going to continue to do that in the future.
Another question for Dr. Taylor. Is the school going to be open tomorrow? And I know that you're a dad. What do you say to parents who kind of waited today? They were getting the text messages. The text messages had conflicting information. What do you say to those parents?
I'm ending this. What's up? I'm gonna go ahead and put up my screen thing that I like to do. I'm gonna call this one. Well, I'll either pop back in later on to come up with something else, or you'll see me tomorrow or something. Hold on. How do I get this one? Yeah, right here. I need that to be my screensaver. What do we got left in this mug? Anybody? Is there anybody left in here? What we got left? You still here, Bot Boy or Salty or Turbo? Well, this is what I'll say with all this, man. Oh, you're still here? All right, bro. I was just gonna say, man, everybody be good. Don't let all this drama get to you. What's up, Turbo? What's up, Salty? I didn't know if y'all were still here. I was gonna say peace out to everybody, but I didn't know if y'all were here. I wasn't gonna say, but thanks to everybody that chilled. We can't let all this drama get to us. You know, Stoney was good, bro. We can't let all this get to us, y'all. We gotta literally. I like today. I thought today it was gonna be real vile in the chat. I really did, and I really thought people were way more respectful than I thought. Which means people are starting to see the truth, and that's what's up. That's what's up. At least that's what I think. I hope. But that being said, man, I love y'all. Thanks for kicking it. Turbo, Stony, Salty, Ryan, Billy, everybody. Love y'all. Be good. And I'm up out of here, y'all. Have a good night. Wait, hold on. Let me change this headline so it doesn't say that. Hold on. Yeah, let me change that too. Right. All right. Later, y'all. Much love. I'm out.